Greetings, LCR members and guests. Many blessings to you all as we together begin our journey through this new year. 2023 will be a very exciting year for LCR as we are engaged in the call process for a new pastor. This will be one of the most important, if not the most important task LCR will undertake this year. Today, Pastor Ruth and I would like to give you an overview of the total call process and then a projected timeline of how things will progress. I know that some of you have been involved in this process at LCR before, or perhaps at another congregation, so you are familiar with what we are talking about. But we are receiving questions about where are we and what can we be expected, so we wanted to answer some questions that we're about to ready to embrace this whole process in January. As you've read in the weekly, or have heard from Pastor Ruth, the first step of the call process is a congregational self-study through a method known as the appreciative inquiry. Appreciative inquiry is an interview process through which all members, and we really encourage all members of the congregation to begin to participate in, because you're going to be interviewed to answer three very important questions about LCR as a church. The first question, remembering your entire experience at LCR, when were you the most alive, most motivated, and most excited about your involvement? When did your faith deepen? And when did your relationship with others grow stronger? What made it this way? The second question, what do you value most about LCR? What activities or ingredients or focus or ways of life are most important to you and most meaningful? And third, if you had three wishes, what would your wishes be for the future of LCR? What would the congregation look like? And what would we be doing as they become a reality? The results of these interviews will be collated, and they'll be put into the ministry site profile. The ministry site profile is the document that describes LCR to the Synod and is used to match the pastoral candidates for congregations. Now, the trainings for the appreciative inquiry interviewing began in November, and we've had 3 already, and about 26 persons of the congregation have agreed to be participants in interviewing others. There'll be one more training session on January 21 in the gathering room from 9 to 11 o'clock. And if you're interested in becoming an interviewer, please contact Pastor Ruth. There will also be a final orientation for all interviewers on the same day from 11 to noon in the gathering room as well. But we're also going to be sending out a Zoom link, so for those of you who are not able to attend in person, we have the opportunity to still participate. So the next step, which is most important, is for congregation members to sign up so that they can be a part of the process and be interviewed. You may sign up in person in the narthex. There'll be persons here to sign you up between worship services starting January 15th, and again on the 22nd and the 29th. If you'd rather, you may sign up in Sign Up Genius. There's a new link there for you to go in and sign your name and give your email address as well as your telephone number. And if you don't sign up, you will then be contacted by an interviewing member so we can assure that you do want to participate in this opportunity. In addition to signing up, we're also going to have copies of these 3 questions so that you have an opportunity to reflect on them and think about them before you are interviewed and to give some meaningful, thoughtful answers. Similarly, at the same time, the Church Council is going to be involved in developing the call committee and will invite 6 members to be a part of the call committee. The members will be a cross-section of our congregation. It will be diversity of age, culture, gender, as well as perhaps longevity in the congregation, and whether or not you attend the 8:30 or the 11 o'clock service. These persons should be trusted by the congregation to make sound decisions, and they also must be able to maintain all activities within the call committee in complete confidentiality, and as the Synod's instructions say, even from spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, or other mates. So it's important to know that the call committee is completely separate from all other groups at LCR, including Church Council. There is no interaction. It is also important to know that Pastor Ruth may serve as an advisor to this group up until the point that the committee starts to begin to receive names from the Synod for candidates. At that point, she may no longer serve as an advisor because there may not have any outside influences in the decision-making of the call committee. So this is the general overview of the interview and selection of the call committee process, and I'll now turn this over to Pastor Ruth, who will share with you the next steps and the projected timeline for the call process.
Thank you, Catherine. The most significant task for the call committee is to complete the ministry site profile for LCR. This is basically drawing up a job description for the next pastor. The answers to the ministry site profile, MSP, those questions will be based on the interviews that have taken place during the appreciative inquiry effort. This is why congregational input from the appreciative inquiry process is essential to the calling of a new pastor. Other information used in the MSP includes the demographics of LCR and its community, the strengths of the congregation, and its priorities for ministry. The ministry site profile helps candidates to determine if their skills and gifts will fit the needs of LCR. Upon completion, the MSP is reviewed by the Congregation Council. Once it's been approved, it is sent to the office of the bishop for their review. Then LCR's ministry site profile will be entered into a database that is visible to all the pastors in the ELCA. Next, the call committee will start receiving names from the office of the bishop. They will review the candidates' profiles. And if the committee is not satisfied with the profiles that they received, they may ask for more profiles to review. Then they initiate interviews with candidates. First and second interviews are generally held over Zoom. Once the call committee has narrowed down its preferred candidates to one or two, they invite the person for an in-person interview. And if that is a successful interview, they recommend one candidate to the Congregation Council. Candidates' names are not shared outside of the call committee until one name is given to the council. The Congregation Council then interviews the candidate and recommends the candidate to the congregation. A reception is held in order to meet the candidate. It is a social opportunity to get to know the candidate and family, if any. It is not an interview. Then a vote of the congregation is held. A 2/3 vote of those present is required to call a new pastor. The candidate accepts the call. And until the candidate accepts the call, the name of the candidate may not be shared outside the congregation in order to protect the candidate's current call. Finally, the candidate is installed as pastor by the bishop or a representative of the bishop. That's the general outline of the call process. And I can hear you asking right now, how long does this take? The Synod has put together an approximate timeline for this call process. It is important to remember, however, that the main goal is getting the right person for this congregate, not doing it as fast as possible. The timeline goes like this. In November, the interim starts. And this is a time of discernment, of talking about, thinking about where the congregation is now. January to February, we study. Where does the congregation want to go? What does it want to be? During this time, the call committee is appointed and installed. Information from the appreciative inquiry process is shared with the call committee. Then we move on to February, April, and during this time, the the call committee begins to complete the ministry site profile. And that site profile, as we've talked about, it tells who the congregation is and who it is seeking for its pastor. The call committee completes the ministry site profile within 2 to 3 months of being installed. The council and the synod approve the ministry site profile, and the bishop posts it on the ELCA Transitions website. And along comes May. At this point, the call committee begins interviewing. And some of the questions they ask are, do the congregation and the candidates share the same goals for ministry? Can they work well together? So the call committee receives names from the bishop's office and initiates interviews. June, July, a final candidate is selected by the call committee. It's voted on and called. And then in August or September, the new pastor will be installed. This is your process for the calling of a new pastor. And I want to say at the end, as we did at the beginning, it is important that everyone have a say and take the time to be part of this process so that you can welcome your new pastor. Thank you.